Certain coaches are starting to get connected with the Sharks. We dig into some of the names and try to figure out who could be the next coach of the San Jose Sharks.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker at the Reef, and new co-host over at Western Conference Tuesdays on the Locked On NHL channel. Thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. If you want to be an everyday, all you have to do is just follow wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch this on YouTube as well. And today we're going to be starting to kind of dig into some of the names that have been linked to the Sharks' vacant head coaching position. With Jeff Blashill, Marco Sturm, and then we'll talk about Ryan Warsofsky, who's already been interviewed for and Jay Leach, who's also been kind of connected as well. And just try to get to know some of these guys, what they would potentially bring to San Jose. So before we get into all that, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So on Elliotte Friedman's 32 Thoughts podcast this week, he mentioned that the Sharks are interested in Jeff Blashill. So Jeff Blashill, if you do not know, former, let me pull this up here, former Red Wings head coach, currently right now the Lightning assistant coach. But yeah, he was the Detroit Red Wings head coach, also head coach for the Grand Rapids, Detroit's AHL team, and then was also a NCAA coach for as well. Won a Calder Cup with Grand Rapids way back in 2013. So he is kind of the name that has recently popped up as a potential someone that Mike Grier is looking at here. And Blashill kind of makes a lot of sense, especially when you look at the profile, right? Was the head coach of the Red Wings from 2015 to 2022. During that time, of course, that was kind of the Red Wings transition rebuild years, right? They're very much like the Sharks were going through kind of out with the old, stockpiling picks, trying, to kind of, and we're starting to see a little bit of the fruits of the labor. Red Wings kind of just missing the playoffs this year, but during that time, he went 204, 261, and 72. Did make the playoffs in 2016, and that was kind of the last straw of the Red Wings before they really entered their rebuild phase. But I think Blashill is somebody who makes a lot of sense, right? Kind of went through a rebuild situation with the Red Wings, and of course he was fired from that because the team didn't improve enough. But again, kind of like Quinn, where it was very much the roster that you were given, right? And during that time was not great. And that 2019-2020 team was one of the worst Red hockey teams. If that season had not been cut short by COVID, they probably would have had less points, ended, a full 82 game season with less points than what the Sharks did this year. But, listening to Steve Yzerman, I went back and rewatched his press conference from after Blashill was terminated, and he talked about how Blashill he did a good job of kind of running the program, right? He thought the way he went practices, the way he kind of coached, the way he kind of developed his team did a good job, but the inability to improve the defense was kind of his undoing there, which is something to keep in mind as this Sharks team's defense last year. It was bad, right? We all saw it. It was a very bad defensive team. And yes, you can look at the talent on the roster when you have, kind of a mix of, 7 or 8 guys who on most teams would probably be 5th or 6th defensemen. Granted, some of these are much younger guys like Ty Emberson and Henry Thrun, et cetera, et cetera. But right, we know the talent level on the defensive side of the puck wasn't the best. So interesting though, because I mean, like last season of while Blashill was in Detroit, Mo Seider burst onto the scene and won the Calder that year. And yes, again, one guy doesn't make your defense, as we saw with Erik Karlsson. But just something interesting where maybe again you add a little bit more talent and kind of see where Blashill could potentially go with it. I talked to Brian over at Locked On Red Wings, even though he thinks I'm garbage, or he got Tony Ferrari to think I'm garbage, or say I'm garbage. But I kind of talked to him about his thoughts with of Blashill, and he said he actually liked him. You saw the way he wasn't afraid to play young guys, which is a big check mark, right? For the Sharks, is you need someone who isn't afraid to play young guys. That was kind of Quinn's, he was sometimes hesitant to play some of the younger guys. But yeah, he mentioned that he really liked that, where he wasn't afraid to play the young guys. He's good at developmental, aspect of the game. Again, coached the AHL championship back in 2013. Did say, though, he struggled with kind of adjustments, which is, again, right, the Sharks right now are not super into business of winning games right now. Winning the development side is more important than maybe the wins and losses. And yes, you want to win more games than you did last year, or at least be more competitive than you were last year. But again, right, it's this season's about William Eklund, Backlund, Celebrini. If Will Smith's here, like it's putting these young guys in the best position to succeed and making sure that they're getting their NHL careers headed off into a good start. And I think having a guy who's been through one of these rebuilds before, right? Yes, rebuilds are hard. And, we know the Sharks are probably going to lose a bunch of games this year. And having a guy who's kind of been through that before and has now spent the last 2 seasons with Tampa, maybe learning that system, I think, again, it's not going to be a sexy hire, right? The Sharks are most likely not going to be making a, kind of sexy hire with this because of where the franchise is right now. But I'm intrigued by what Jeff Blashill could potentially bring to the Sharks, especially when it comes to the development, and then whatever pieces he can take from Tampa Bay and that system, which has been very, very successful. And maybe if you're a Steve Stamkos to San Jose type of person, that gives you maybe another calling card in that, right? And as the Sharks look to add some pieces, they do need to spend some money. And again, we don't know Blashill's his potential relationship or what his relationship with Steve Stamkos is, but if they have a good relationship, that could be a nice, again, like calling card, like nice kind of connect the dots, right? And we know a lot of free agents and everything like that. It's a lot, very much about relationships. Oh, I played for this guy before. Oh, I know this guy from here, et cetera, et cetera. So interested to see kind of where this leads. Again, we're still don't know how far along the process is. Mike Grier is very quiet, close to the vest when it comes with especially with stuff like this. But I could very much see this, especially for a guy who's kind of been through it with the Red Wings before. And I think right now the Sharks have kind of already hit their low point, and now it's can you start to build a little bit here? At least the hope is we've hit our low point and potentially start to build a little bit here. So I'm intrigued to see if Blashill continues to be a candidate for the Sharks and kind of what he would potentially bring to San Jose. So we'll continue to look at some other potential candidates here. We'll talk about former Shark Marco Sturm, and if he makes a lot of sense, especially from what his previous background is. So we'll talk about that here in just 1 second. If you want to grab tickets for an NBA playoff game, maybe you want to go see the Giants, maybe you want to go see the A's. It's concert season is almost here. You need to check out Game Time. Game Time is the authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA. It makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Price on Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip off. They've got killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from their seat, and the lowest price guarantee. The thing I love about it is, again, those views from your seat. You know exactly what your view is going to look like. Nothing worse than getting to a venue and you're realizing that you have bad tickets. Actually, the only thing worse is when you go to purchase said tickets and you get slammed with a bunch of fees, but they're all in pricing at Game Time. You know exactly how much you're going to pay. No surprises, no sticker shock when you go to check out. So make sure you guys go check out Game Time. They take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets, MLB tickets, whatever you are looking for. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right. Marco Sturm. Potential. So former Shark, of course, part of the biggest trade, easily the biggest trade, one of the biggest trades. You would go Thornton first, and I would guess Erik Karlsson second. We'll go Thornton though. Takes the cake. Marco Sturm, potential. So currently the Reign of the AHL, Ontario Reign, the LA Kings AHL affiliate, their head coach also was an assistant coach for the Kings in the NHL, part of Todd McClellan's staff, and then the head coach of Germany. We'll get to the Germany part here a little bit more, but kind of his quick resume. The Reign right now are in the Pacific Finals of playing Coachella. He's an interesting one because of, again, right? I think we know the Sharks are going to be looking at that developmental piece, especially with how young their roster is projected to be. You know, you're talking about two guys who are probably going to, if Will Smith and Macco and Celebrini are both here, two guys under the age of 20. Multiple, guys who are under the age of 23. Like this roster is going to be very, very young again. And then Mark-Edward Vlasic and Mikael Granlund are hanging out. But like a guy, again, who's used to working with younger guys playing in the AHL, right? I know Ontario's got a little bit more veteran presence than like the San Jose Barracuda do. But again, like he's worked with very high profile players during that time. Brant Clark, excellent defenseman, the pick right after the Sharks. Great season, full season this year with Ontario Reign. He had 46 points in 50 games playing for the Reign this year. Akil Thomas, who, former second round pick, really kind of found his game this year with 46 points in 64 games for Ontario. Like, you've seen the way LA, they've been able to kind of been very slow, meticulous with their development. Quentin Byfield, Marco Sturm wasn't the coach of the Reign during that time, but you've seen a guy like that, right? Very slow with their process and development, and now they're kind of paying dividends with that. So Marco Sturm makes a lot of sense, right? Former Shark. That's just, again, nice little kind of feather in the cap there. As of course, knows Patrick Marleau, Mike Grier, like kind of knows a lot of the development staff there with the Sharks, and would be able to, you would assume, fit right in. But I think another thing that's really interesting is kind of reading about his past and his, kind of after his NHL, is he really had a huge hand in kind of the German national team, working kind of to build that program from the ground up, especially when it comes to like, the under 20 team, like kind of building that up. And then he kind of worked his way with that team eventually was the head coach of Team Germany, for the men's. But that's not easy to kind of build a development, being part of that kind of group to build a development path and see it become successful, right? And we've seen a lot of German players, starting to hit the NHL. You look at, of course, Draisaitl's amazing, but guys like JJ Peterka, Tim Stützle, like you're seeing a lot of these German guys really start to kind of make their mark in the NHL. And you have to point to some of the groundwork that Marco Sturm has laid for that, being part of that growth and development. And, I think from, reading some of the interviews and stuff, and the way he's able to kind of teach and connect with some of these young players is a very key, important aspect. And very underrated thing is if you pull him away from the Kings, you make that organization worse, right? Marco Sturm has been kind of, starting to be part of these head coaching job, job opportunities. Pulling him away, he must be very good at his job, right? If he's going to start getting some of these head coaching opportunities, and that makes the Kings, who's one of your biggest rivals, worse if you take a piece out of there. So, again, I really like watching. I think with the Reign, you see kind of the way they play. They're very good defensively. Their goal, and again, playing trusting some of the young guys, right? Eric Portello, the rookie goalie this year, played 39 games for them. That's a lot for a rookie goaltender to kind of play in the AHL, right? And this was his first full season, even in the playoffs, right? He's played a bunch of playoff games for them this year as well, in the kind of playing big minutes for them, kind of being their starting goaltender in the playoffs as well. So I'm at least the beginning of the playoffs. Sorry, I'm pulling up the game log here, but former third round pick from this, from the Buffalo Sabres that the Kings traded for, still had a really nice season. 250 goals against average, 918 save percentage, and 24 wins, 11 losses for, again, a rookie goaltender. I know he's a little bit older, having gone through the college route as a former Michigan guy, but again, trusting your young guys to kind of putting them in a good position to succeed and trusting their development. It's very easy. Aaron Dell was on the roster. Like they had different options where if they wanted to go somewhere else, but they know they need to develop these younger guys, and they're putting these guys in a position to develop, get better, and also win, right? And I know, again, like I mentioned before, I don't expect the Sharks to be as worried about the wins and losses. Yes, they want to win games. But again, right, it's more important that you are seeing these young guys get better and better. That way, when it's time to start winning, it is the young guys who've kind of been through the trials and tribulations, and that they're the ones leading the way, and kind of pulling the weight, right? That this is why you lost all these games. This is why you drafted high, is so that these young guys that you drafted, William Eklund, Will Smith, Macklin Celebrini, Beasted, et cetera, these are the guys who are kind of leading the way for you and, kind of being that next wave. So Marco Sturm, a lot of people, when the Sharks kind of first announced David Quinn was out, a lot of people pointed to Marco Sturm as a potential guy there. So would be, another guy I'm interested to see kind of what he would bring to San Jose. And again, you're making the Kings worse, which is always a good thing. So we'll talk about Warsofsky and Jay Leach here in just a minute. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guarantee Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. with all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay guarantee fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, Ryan Warsofsky, who we've have talked about on this program before, but he has officially gone through and done his interview. Of course, currently the Sharks' assistant head coach of the Chicago Wolves in the AHL, was also with Charlotte, coached South Carolina in ECHL, won a Calder Cup with Chicago in 2022. And I know like it's going to be interesting with him because he was in charge of the defense, right? And I think that's the big focus is for the Sharks is how do you get this defense better? Why pick the guy who just ran this poor defense, right? Again, he's just a coach, right? He's doing what he is, the assistant coach. He's doing what he's told, right? It is David Quinn's system. And I'm curious to see what he would do if he has his own way, right? And the nice thing is like he kind of knows the players already, having worked with them, and maybe like he can build a better system for them, knowing their strengths and weaknesses a little bit more. But at the same time, why wouldn't he have just done that last year? I guess I'm trying to play both sides of this here of what with Ryan Warsofsky. I think Ryan Warsofsky is going to be a head coach, right? And you've seen how his path. Again, he's been very, very good wherever he has gone. He was in South Carolina. I actually was living in South Carolina at the time when that they made their run to, I think it's the Kelly Cup. I forget whatever the ECHL title is, but when they made their run at the time, I also lived in Charleston, where the South Carolina Stingrays are located. But like Charleston's not a hockey town, man. Like there's right. But that during that time that they definitely got some buzz with him. And again, right, he's gone. He went to Charlotte. They were good. He went to Chicago. Chicago's always been pretty good, right? But again, got over the hump with a very aggressive penalty kill and a team known for their defense. And maybe given the reins, he would be kind of more apt to play a more aggressive style to maybe overcome defensive issues that they have with just a lack of talent, where maybe we're not the most talented, we're just going to play super aggressive and super hard with our defense, and maybe that's the way he tries to go here. Where David Quinn, maybe we heard where very kind of it seemed like from guys like Nico Sturm, very kind of rigid with his style, wasn't kind of willing to work things around to try to kind of overcome some of their shortcomings defensively, or so maybe that's the Warsofsky approach, is just we're going to try to be way more aggressive with here, and give our guys a little bit more freedom to try to, again, we know we're not the most talented team. Let's just try to make up for it by being super, super aggressive. So I know I think Shane Peng reported that he has actually interviewed for the job. He also, did interview at the way back in 2022 when Quinn got hired and was brought on. So I know Warsofsky, though, I believe has also interviewed for the Kraken job, or is supposed to interview for the Kraken job as well. So just to kind of keep that in mind. Speaking of the Kraken, Jay Leach, who's also kind of been, I know he has interviewed for the Kraken head coach job, was the assistant coach for them as well. Long time in Providence in the AHL, was also assistant head coach at Wilkes-Barre in the AHL as well. Leach, again, former Shark, short term, wasn't there super long, but yes, Jay Leach, former Shark. Also did spend some time in Germany as an assistant coach as well. But yeah, was 1 year as the assistant coach in Providence with the Bruins, and then spent several years as the head coach there before he bumped up to the NHL, where he spent the last 3 years with the Seattle Kraken as their assistant coach. Again, another young guy. He's only 44, so you would expect him to be able to continue, to kind of work with these younger players as well. Yeah, this is just kind of ties again. Don't really know what this situation is. It's just a name that is kind of floating around as a potential person here. So I still think, though, I assume if Seattle offered him the job first, he would probably go there because he's been there the past couple years. And Seattle's kind of an up and coming team. I know they took a big step back last year compared to the year before. But again, I think 2 years ago, they were way ahead of schedule. This last year was kind of more what you'd expect to see out of this team that I still feel like wants to kind of build this up a little bit slower, a little bit, kind of build it up the right way. And I would expect Seattle to be better next year, especially with Shane Wright kind of hitting the scene, Matty Beniers, having a probably a bounce back season. So, I think Seattle's Seattle's probably a bit of a better spot right now than the Sharks are, just because of the talent that's already on the roster and, some of the incoming talent here as well. So interesting to see if he would be, but again, right, there's only 32 head coaching jobs. And if you get offered one, are you going to turn down one, even if it's a not great spot, at least when it comes to wins, losses for San Jose right now. So I think that's all the kind of guys at the moment who are, so Jay Leach did, according to Shang Peng, Jay Leach did interview with the Seattle Kraken, but has been also linked to the Sharks job. So we'll kind of keep an eye on that as well. Some of the other just kind of coaching, this is all from the Elliotte Friedman's 32 Thoughts podcast. So since there's 6 coaching jobs left here soon, I think the Maple Leafs one might be about wrapped up. So you have Jay Woodcroft and Sheldon Keefe as kind of the main guys for the Devils. Craig Berube, I think, is supposed to go to the Leafs. Dean Evanson is interviewing with the Jets as well. I don't know if they're actually hired that. I thought I saw something today, but maybe they haven't quite gotten there yet. So you do have the Kings, who are going to be looking, to fill their spot here. If it could be potentially Sturm, who, again, in-house type of guy. So plenty of coaching carousel news here to go. I wouldn't be surprised if the Sharks are the last one to fill theirs. Again, right? It's not the best situation when it comes to wins and losses, as coaches are kind of viewed on. But I think, though, for a low pressure where you're going to get a chance to develop some high-end talent, if that's your thing, San Jose is the place to be. So that's going to be it for me today. Thank you guys again for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Plenty of great stuff this week, right? We had a draft profile. I did a lot of good stuff this week, I think. So go check. I did a nice breakdown of Kasper Halttunen. Congrats to Kasper Halttunen winning the OHL. Winning the OHL championship. We'll have more on the Memorial Cup, so we'll keep an eye out on how Halttunen does there. Make sure you guys are following wherever you get podcasts. Of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. Be back next week. We'll probably have 2 draft profiles / draft related things coming up, so make sure you guys are following along. Also follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Follow me on Twitter at My Fry Hole. Till Monday. Bye, friends.